Instagram taking pictures, but we're now on a 49 yard because we don't own no yard.
Brother, if you only knew how much you are talking our kind of language, yeah? I think it's commonly referred to as fur coat and no knickers because it's a lot of fronting going on. That's what's going on.
Hell of a lot.
Hell of a lot. And we don't, you know? And I'm sure as the conversation progresses this evening, you know, we will talk about that because actually
and I've done it and I've been involved in it. So I'm not blaming anybody. And do you want to know the worst thing? That in and of itself is an addiction. Do you know why? Because you feel like you're actually doing something while you're sweeping up leaves on a windy day. And then comes a gust of wind, like another youth getting stabbed. And you realize, well, I'm just sweeping up leaves on a windy day. I'm doing absolutely nothing. But it feels great when you've got your brush in your hand.
Yeah, you feel some sense of purpose, but there's days like today where you're just overwhelmed, really, for true. You're just overwhelmed and you're like, well, what's this?
Yeah.
You're right, it's leaves on a windy day. It's just, and the things that you know that you're trying to tell people I'm not saying, you know, some people are very precious. I'm saying solution focus and everything, and it's the same chat you're having again, and it's just like Groundhog Day.
Yeah.
And it can be very, very frustrating, Dina, 100%, man. I'm telling you. But
you see what and then I know you're going to jump in and pull everybody in. But you actually just said about Groundhog Day is the thought that I had whilst I was getting ready just now for your show. And that's literally why I fell back from the front line or even speaking with the world, because that fronting, I realize it is only fronting, whether it's intentional or not. It's a bit like not being reliable, whether it's intentional or not, you're just not reliable. And I said, nobody is having more meetings than me because I would have maybe 20 meetings with people just drop in as they like in the shop when I had the shop. I would be taking, I belong to a members club for a year. I will be taking people out to dinner, paying at that time, just wasting money, not wasting money, establishing relationships. However, very little intangibles came from that. Lots of conversations until my cerebellum just became a whirlwind like Highlander, filled with information about every single industry known to man. Yeah, but so my problem-solving skills and my synaptics were very connected. But what was the tangible outcome if we don't have any institution? So then you just got to pause. And Black people, as a people, you know what we do? We say, my spirit animal is a panther. I'm a tiger, I'm a lion. Not me. Do you know what my spirit animal is?
What?
I'm a tortoise. I move very slowly every single day in the same direction. And when I'm sick, I poke my head in my shell and I go inward. And then when I emerge, I'm well. And I just make incremental progress every day. I'm the living tortoise.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's massive. That is because most people would say they would go for the most aggressive or, you know, type of animal, but actually it's the practical, realistic approach. Like, I just do what I can, and when I can't, I retreat. And when I feel good again, I come out and I plod forward, and I say, "Oh, for real, 100%." I've never thought about having a spirit animal. It'd be interesting to see what these ladies put in the chat as to what they think my spirit animal may well be. But I'm going to start us off because I know I'm so happy to have you join us on H&H. So to the people on Facebook, good evening, one and all, and welcome to Thursday's edition of Hardo Bread and Horlicks, commonly referred to as H&H. What are we on today, Fidel? We have with us, for my money, and I'm going to say something, for my money, when after the, before even, because I've met Dean before, we kind of have intersected slightly over the years in the same sort of social justice spaces. I remember, I think the last time I saw you before you did your retreat was at the Violent Crime Prevention Board
breakfast.
Dr. Angela and others had down there in King's Cross. And I know a lot of what we talk about kind of crosses over, but I've always been an admirer of your work because you speak your truth and you chat sense. And I mean, we all chat nonsense sometimes as well, but I've always admired and said, you know what, this brother chats sense and he's right. And I might not have stayed in that place, but I know from afar, like if anybody's chatting sense, it is Dean. So I wanted to, what we've used H&H for is as a platform to educate the community. So before COVID, we did it here in Croydon more locally, but what the internet has allowed us by going online is to have a further reach. So we're not so Croydon, we are actually joining and joining up people further away from ourselves and having these very real conversations. And what we've decided to do is, yes, we do have the conversations around education and the prison to school pipeline and all of that stuff that really does relate. But I'm having some of the deeper conversations as well. And you're being here tonight. You know, I'm somebody who thinks strategically. That's my strength, to think tactically. And yeah, I've used Croydon as a bit of a proof of concept for that. But I wanted a voice like yourself to come out and tell us your perspective, where you see us going. And I know you keep it real. So that's, you know, like I said, again, happy to have you here. And I do want people, think of some questions that you can ask Dean in the second half. So what we just generally have a conversation now, and in the second half, Dean, then we have like question and answers and get the conversation going. So please, those on Facebook in the chat, put questions forward for Dean or for people to just have a discussion around. And also in the Zoom room, please use the chat facility to enter in any questions you have or any thoughts you have around what we discussed. So I'm just going to kind of kick off, Dean, and just ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, because there'll be people on here who won't know.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about when you say when I had the shop. So just give us a flavour of who you are and where you've come from first, if you don't mind.
Yes, I am the article South Londoner, now resident in East London. I spent the first 30 years of my life in South London. I'm not going to go into the long story of the journey. First, initially spending a lot of time around petty criminals, evolving into a would-be entrepreneur, but always on my own pound, and setting up businesses. Every time one of those businesses would go down, as they do in your learning curves, I would get a job for 6 months, save my stake money, and bet on myself again, because William Hill have enough. So I did that up until my last venture, which I was in for 11 years, which is a men's clothing retail on Camden High Street that I closed last August. In between that time, when you had the murders of, I should say, state-sponsored assassinations of our US cousins, our family, who we are connected to from the continent, it drove me to take more of a public role, knowing what my problem-solving skills, and I digress slightly. I had also done youth mentoring, but very quietly. I know a lot of people took photos and videos and all of that stuff, but I didn't have a smartphone. I didn't turn on my smartphone. I bought it, I think, in 2015 to become a football intermediary. And I left it in one of my holdalls for a year because I just despised social media. You wouldn't believe it now. And smartphones. Like, this was my original phone. I think I've had this phone for about 12 years. This was my family phone, the Nokia. And my Samsung sat in a bag for a year. And then one night I was really angry based on the injustice of what was happening to our brothers and sisters in the States. And I made a video. And I will admit, I'd had a glass of rum or two as well. That video is no longer seeing the light of day. But after that, I said, that's not it. You know a lot of people and you have a lot of experience. And if you were to talk to young men to come from the road, you've actually taken that journey successfully, because I could have been stabbed many times. Like the culture of how easy it is to be stabbed now, I would tell you I wouldn't be here. I've been surrounded by people with knives, not to go out to somewhere to get stabbed, but where I live, because I used to move with guys in North Peckham Estate. But when my parents got divorced, we moved in with my grandparents in Kennet. So I didn't have no friends where I lived. I didn't move where I lived. When I was 13, my son is 14, doesn't go anywhere. When I was 13, I was taking my brother and sister to school across 3 boroughs. We going from Kennet and from Lambeth through Southwark to Lewisham. My son is 14, he doesn't go anywhere. So that's the responsibility I had. I was the original latchkey kid from 9. So I had learned a lot and everything was very naked to me, where sometimes people see what they want to see. I see what's actually there. It's like if you ask me about the United States, what is it? Well, it's like a beautiful blonde woman dancing around in a red dress. It's brand new. And the closer you get, she's got poop in her drawers and you can smell it really.
No.
So I see what is there, irrespective of what your articulation and your packaging is. And because I see that, at this juncture of my life as a reverse engineer, I have no desire to fix what you have, but to look at what works very well, deconstruct it and reconstruct it with a team who are, number one, first criteria, qualified, not lay people, qualified in the area of expertise. And number 2, willing. I am not a converter of man nor woman. God bless you. If it's not for you, go with God.
Love that. Love that. Love that. That's really powerful. And thank you for that. So tell us a little bit about moving on from like where you've come from, and thank you for sharing that with us. But your thoughts around ADPAC first. I thought we'd do, because that's the first place that I know you to be part of, the first sort of, what does ADPAC stand for? What does it do? And I like the fact that you just mentioned you're looking for qualified. We're not looking, not that we're saying that, you know, people that have a passion for things can't be part of, but I think that's one of the points that where we've always gone wrong as a community.
Absolutely.
We get a lot of passion, but we don't have a lot of qualification. And so when you're at certain tables, the fact that you're not qualified and you can't evidence your qualification. So qualification is not necessarily a degree or whatever, but qualification. Have you done this before? Where's your proof of concept? Where can we see that you have done this before and look at the outcomes and the impact? So I'm glad that you said that, Dean, because I think that's really, really important for people that are thinking of doing things. But again, I bring it back to ADPAC. What is ADPAC and what does it do?
Okay, so I'm going to overarch it like this. When the environment we're in right now, that the Conservative Party has created for us, and it is a hostile environment, irrespective of the sophistication of our understanding. When we complain about racism, they will gaslight and tell us that we are in the wrong for talking about it. Now, umbrellas don't make it rain, but they do protect you from the water. So ADPAC is an umbrella organization. I think when I first exposed myself to the scene, whatever that is, about 4 years ago, there were people who thought I was seeking to duplicate what they were doing. Don't reinvent the wheel, don't. But what they didn't realize is I wanted a deeper understanding of their particular sector without wanting to come in their sector, because I see everybody as a delivery partner, as an umbrella organization. So ADPAC was always my vision without knowing exactly what ADPAC was. So I would go and spend time with all of the grassroots youth engagement organizations, rites of passage, mentoring, and just got to know everybody in those fields. Also in the strategic fields, also in the economic fields, people who have care homes, people who have old people's homes, service providers in the mental health industry. So literally going across every single field for 4 years. I was in like 140 WhatsApp groups. where I would be active. I'm not well. I'm really not well. And I would be active in all of them for like, and that was for about 3 years.
Jesus.
And probably the same in Facebook groups. And I was active in all of them for 3 years. So what I was becoming was a human algorithm to track us, to understand what our temperature was, what we are ready for, who we are, who we aren't, what we have, what we don't, what is missing, and what needs to be done. Now, people might think that they saw me all over Facebook, but I was using LinkedIn more than I was using Facebook. And all of my meetings were with professionals that I was speaking with based on what I see them do in their careers in the world. So I would see a banker and I would take them to a members club, buy them a dinner and a drink and pick their brain, because I find that a peer education at my stage of life is far more valuable to circumvent the learning curves than me going and getting any qualification or saying I'm going to study this. That's a waste of time. I'm seeking to structure an umbrella organization. So I need the short version, and I will be there with my notes. A peer education is far more powerful at my stage of life to save time. So understanding that, I said, where can I find the most qualified people to not only become potential delivery partners in the future, but also to give me that peer education that I need, so that as the founder of an organization, I've got an understanding, a succinct understanding of all these various industries. So I ended up with around, this will be like the period that I closed my shop, around 6,500 African diaspora professionals from every single industry you can imagine. I rarely took connections from any other ethnicity, because I made a decision like Garvey. We can totally build out this machine by ourselves, bar none. We don't require anybody else. And we do, but we don't. So I looked at all of those who are at the highest echelons of what they do and made a decision. I'm going to meet them and I can converse with them. And I will build an infrastructure based on what they tell me needs to be done, not by asking them, but by just picking their brains. So if you were telling me everything great that was going on in your industry, I'd be there listening like blah, 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 blah. My sweet spot is when you come to the problems, because now I want to kick in as a reverse engineer to see what we need to fix. If all of that is going well, and we're in such a mess as a people, what's wrong? So I don't want to hear all the great stuff. I want to know what's wrong. Like in youth engagement, I know exactly what's wrong. Nobody needs to tell me anything, from youth mentoring, from the centers that we need, from the engagement with the mayor's office, and to our political engagement and our apathy, which is why we're in the condition that we're in. So also based on the fact that we ran a public event called the Thursday Club for a year. We did it for 6 months in Brixton and 6 months in Tottenham. And we covered topics like education, business, economics, Black love, spirituality. And we had people coming out between 100 and 200 people, and they were paying as well. So we knew that we had something, and we knew that the appetite was there. And where we like to repeat the rhetoric, which has been given to us by Europeans, in the same way that we became lazy when our labor stopped being free, I said, no, we can trust each other, those who can. Those who tell you that Black people are untrustworthy, and you should listen to them because they're telling the truth. But we are trustworthy. We are legion. Our numbers are immense. And we're making money and we're intelligent. However, we are fragmented because we don't own the platforms. And then I went and did that research. And I found out just how many platforms we do own. And in this country, not in the States. So then I made colleagues of them. And then I said, we need media delivery partners. So like my brother Robert in HMP TV, Terry and Richie in Black Ice TV, and there's a number of them, content over everything. I just started to draw in all of our broadcasters. And when we had the Thursday Club, we could have 4 of our broadcasters recording simultaneously, where it was going out over all of their platforms. So we really had a wide reach. And then I'm looking at comments and I'm saying, so here are the problems. But then it told me something as well. You've been running around with your purpose. You're going to end up in the same place as Malcolm X. Broke, possibly dead, definitely single, worst dad of the year. And I looked around. For all people's rhetoric, we celebrate people when they've transitioned. We don't celebrate them in life. And what I do know is that we do not want a hero. What we need is the institution that's functional. So it put it in context for me. What was the purpose of the Labour Party as opposed to the Conservative Party? The purpose was to set up the NHS after the Second World War that every single British person benefit from, irrespective of their background. The purpose of the umbrella organization ADPAC is for every single African Caribbean to benefit from nationally, irrespective of their income, their intelligence, their class. Is all irrelevant. You are an African diasporan, irrespective of your boat stop. This is an institution to protect you by nationally coordinating every single grassroots organization that we have. So what I needed to do in my isolation, because I couldn't convey it with my mouth as much as I tried, and people would nod, because nobody wants to seem like they don't comprehend, do they? So people smile. And then when they talk to me in private, when we're not in a group, I realize they don't have a tube of glue what I'm talking about. So,
real talk.
I said, what I need to do is shut off from the world and brain dump every single element into mind maps that are easy to comprehend, into structure, into policy. So if you download 50 PDFs, I have typed them. If you look at 50 models for the public health approach in how to create wraparound care for our young people, is because I dumped it from my brain onto the page so that it was not only easily digestible, but then I went and found the delivery partners so that now when I step back, and I am going to step back and disappear, and nobody will, and I promise you this, nobody will even remember that I was here. In how to create wraparound. ADPAC will stand there alone, fully functional and fully autonomous from any non-African diasporan under our own determination, because our businesses will donate what would have been taxable income so that our people can live. So when people say to me, oh, you're a leader, I'm not a leader because you guys don't pay me. I'm Dean Okai, I do what I want, I say what I want, because you don't give me a penny. You pay tax to people who do not represent you. I'm nobody's leader. I'm not doing this because I want to save the kids or because I want to save Black people. I'm doing it because I'm addicted and because I'm qualified. And if I wasn't addicted and qualified, trust me, I would have abandoned it because there's no thanks in it. So all the people that come in for those naive reasons, like porn, when you're new, it's exciting. When nothing has happened or the same thing has happened for 50 movies, people move on. The resilience is in my spirit animal, that hard shell. I don't care what you think. My greatest superpower is not giving a damn what people think. However, my biggest weakness is not giving a damn what people think.
Amen to that, brother. Our strength is also our weakness. 100%. That goes for anything. Even if you think about us as you said, members of the Black diaspora, African diaspora, our strength is equally our weakness. I just could listen to, yeah,
and we let everybody in, and we're not taking care of what needs to be taken care of.
100%, 100%. You know, in preparation for this evening, Dean, there were a lot of things going through my mind, and I wanted to just kind of get your perspective on things like the education system, and you know, where you feel, because obviously you've been so strategic, so you know you've got people qualified to speak from all areas. So this is not just one area. It's not just social justice. This is education. This is understanding the criminal justice element. This is every area of civic life. Not just pertaining to. So you've taken their model, but this is almost like the Black version. Yeah,
absolutely.
In every area, and I think that's absolutely brilliant, because often the concentration is on the areas that people perceive to be Black issues. And actually, Black issues are just like white issues. The whole thing is an issue, right? So I definitely agree with that. What's your perspective on education? You know, the great Paul Lawrence, who we both know, you know, sadly left us and left here. He was a great advocate for not just, you know, he liked ANOS simply because we were a place where we could informally educate the community. There's nothing fancy around here. We don't have a fancy website. But we're consistent. I think the strongest thing is that we're consistent in our delivery and keeping up those conversations. For you and education within, for us as a community, where do you think, and for parents, where do you think we're headed, and what can we do to ensure that we kind of fit in with the ADPAC model in terms of our mentality? That's what I'm interested to hear from you.
Well, I'm going to frame it with this first. We are globally grounded because there is an agenda for an entire reset for humanity. That reset, which is the fourth industrial revolution, is based on technology being the thing that contains us. Previously, man contained us. Now, because life is economic, when they replace the pound and the dollar with the digital central banks, which is why they're demonizing cryptocurrency so much now, so that they can, as many of them can go pop before they release the central digital currencies, we will be fully under their control. Now, he who pays the piper calls the tune. And if we go into a socialist state, just like we are, many of us are on benefits, which is one of the things that I made a decision when I was a kid I wouldn't do, because I would rather starve and learn by my nous to be free. So I wanted to frame it with that before I went into education. When I saw the rise of academies, I immediately knew they were going to be animal factories, because although the British education system wasn't designed for us, there was a place designed for us within it, where there was a dual language being spoken. So as I'm telling you about the conquerors of colonialism as if they're heroes, and then I'm telling you that you are an ethnic minority, I'm letting you know that you are a guest, you were conquered, you have no history that we're going to expose you to, which isn't a problem because it's about competition. And we're all playing for our respective teams. And we live in a race-based global economy, which has been created by Europeans, which is why I don't speak about race. I speak about our ethnicity. And the minute that we're speaking about our ethnicity, you know that Black means absolutely nothing. And the people who purport to represent your interests will go in a room where everybody has said Turkish, Greek, Indian, Pakistani, and then when it comes to their turn, they'll say politically Black just to make everybody else know that it's safe, that they don't actually exclusively and specifically represent the interests of African Caribbean people, but that they can all have a taste of the money. That's what's happening. I will not mention any names, but I was in one of those meetings 2 weeks ago where everybody mentioned the specificity of their ethnicity. And then when it came to us, the representative that was there said politically black, and he did that in inverted commas. So my beef isn't with him, it's always to create the alternative. And it's like holding up cloudy water to clear water. The people, given the choice of what to consume, will always go with what is in their best interest. So there is no competition. Everybody is a delivery partner. We don't need to have beefs because we're not children and we're not rappers. It's merely about sticking to your lane. So when we come to education, we've got to speak about our lane. We've got to ask ourselves whether the mainly English women are culturally competent to teach our children, girls or boys. So I would say I could go with my experience, but as a professional, I don't speak about my experience because I understand the cross-cutting themes, which are historic, about undermining our young people. Now, because I've experienced it as a child, as a lay person, and then professionally observed it, I'm aware that it's systemic. So then what should be my approach to an English education? I no longer desire to fight you. It's now for me to go away, gather the cream of African Caribbean educators to create our own African Caribbean specific optimal educational curriculum, and then identify how we are going to purchase commercial freeholds to convert into schools across the boroughs where we are the mainstay, and then how to set up the educational trust, God's law, common law, legislative law. An educational trust lies in common law, which can't be touched by the government or any educational authority, which is why they can't do anything. So first of all, we must understand intrinsically all of the structures involved, which are intricate, which is why I don't speak to lay people. So I'd identified our sovereign trust right now. And, so we don't have to follow anything. And then our children are fully protected and we don't have to answer to anybody. Okay, cool. So what we lack is the capital to realize the model, but we have the model. So you go over here, Kay Johnston has designed an entire educational curriculum. You go to Origin HQ, they've been operating with rites of passage for 20 years. And then just like a magnet, I just started attracting all of these people because I made the right noises. So they all came and sought me out. They all came and sought me out on LinkedIn. They all came and sought me out on Facebook. Very quickly, after about 6 months, my phone number became common public domain. So every single day, which I'm not doing anymore, I used to answer maybe 5, 6 phone calls from numbers and people I'd never spoken to in my life. And it gave me absolute clarity about what needed to be done around the educational space. So first of all, we need the curriculum, but then we need to infuse all of the components. And that is what led me to understand what needed to be done with the public health approach. So you had groups like Access UK, who are doing a phenomenal job of identifying routes to employment, but also entrepreneurialism. You have Julian Hall with Ultra Kids. You have all of the rites of passage. Let me give them their credit. WYLA, MAG, Origin HQ, Manhood Academy. And then you have people like David Mullins with Father Figure. You have Father to Father. You've got the mentoring in Mentivity. So I came to know all of these guys and said, right, so we are able, and there is a female counterpart for all of those as well. And not only that, but when we say as parents, there's no book, stop, I beg. Exposure leads to expansion. All of those groups give parenting classes. I have been to I've been to Origin HQ graduation and Manhood Academy graduation in the same day whilst I was running my shop. So when people say they can't have the time, I run from my shop in the afternoon, gone to Manhood Academy graduation, and then I've gone to Origin HQs at 8 o'clock and I left around 1 o'clock in the morning. Must be something to one. And all those usual suspects from our community were there at both, who are few, where there is very heavy lifting needed that could be distributed amongst the many, which is why I talk about professionals, because we've got the Black teachers unions. So now we go to the source when we're talking about education, and we just, exposure leads to expansion. We expose them to the framework. So now we're all thinking about the same thing. And irrespective of we have our 9 to 5 in their schools, we are thinking about building out our schools and becoming a part of that mechanism. And it is merely time, capital, space between us realizing it, because we become very intentional about executing it. So we have to return to our cultural traditions, and supplementary schools are what produce the exceptional elders that we have. Pardons are what got our parents and grandparents freehold properties, not mortgages. And then we got mortgages later because they realized we were worth money. Like they realized that our children are worth money. Like now you're going to see, since the mayor's dropped 6.6 million, lots of people seeing that our children who are vulnerable are worth money. And everybody's going to become a county lines expert.
That's right.
But Paul Mackenzie was there, and Nana Ajiman was there, and many others were there a long time ago.
That's right.
At the source. So we deal with source like gold. The Queen can parade in her carriage, but your carriage's heart lies in Africa. So we don't kid ourselves.
Oh my God. Oh, Jesus. I'm glad I brought the rum punch, because I didn't know you were, I didn't bring an umbrella, but you said an umbrella doesn't necessarily bring the rain, but you've definitely brought some gems to us tonight, brother, definitely.
You have the umbrella.
Definitely. You're getting a big up on Facebook from Martin Gale, who remembers you at school. He said your dad was a really good fella. So,
yeah,
yeah, he did say that. There's some questions in the chat first in this room. People are asking, have you written a book on your experiences and successes, Dean? That's from Anne Maria.
No. And what I will say is that I have started to take notes for a book, which isn't about me. This is my notebook. It's called Pan-African. So that book will really talk about the journey of constructing this institution, which we will also shoot not a documentary, but a learning tool that you can see in real time. Because as I say, we celebrate us in transition. It's not for the celebration, it's for the mythology, because it's always a mystery. Now, I will tell you that I've made up everything that I've done, which is wrong, because it's been done before. And if there is a manual, a book, a working manual, and then a digital resource that can show you practically how to operate in entrepreneurial leadership and civic leadership at the same time as a Pan-African. And it's called Pan-African because I work also with the ECHO 6 region of the African Diaspora Council and State of the African Diaspora region to create the cohesion. So like our distant cousins in Stamford Hill, what we're establishing with ADPAC is our dual interests. That dual interest must include a strong continent. So let's forget about the history that we've seen of Africa. That intra-African trade agreement you saw the other day is going to exponentially increase the intra-African trade from currently 18%, which is so nominal and ridiculous for a continent that produces every single raw material, to creating the manufacturing plants, which I'm also privy to with the projects in the private business sphere, that will make a fully industrialized continent that makes us strong at the same time. So I also have my peers, our peers, I'm going to stop using that term. It's a very selfish one, and it's also not true. Our peers who are in the States, because it is a very joined up model. And I have my counterparts in all of these countries and all of these spaces. And we also have our own currency, which is what will give us our sovereign autonomy when the central digital banks come online and they believe that their pound is going to track us from our bed till we're dead.
Mm-hmm.
We aren't exploring our sovereignty, which is there. So I'm going to put it like this. I'm not going to get too political, and I say this because some politics are dangerous. But if you imagine two men in a room with guns, and one man has a news crew that he's brought with him that he's paying, and the other man doesn't have a news crew. Now, the man with the gun and the news crews come to the house of the other man with the gun. The only difference between those two men with guns is the narrative that the man with the news crew is going to create. I will not say any more about that. We understand the historical reference. What we don't do as African diaspora people is make very big decisions very quickly that are critical to our self-determination and self-preservation, because we are, through our indoctrination, we hand over our sovereignty because that man has given himself a title. So here's another thing. All power is self-appointed, bar none. You must be willing and complicit with your oppressor for him to oppress you, which is why you vote, because there has to be a contract of complicity.
Oh my God. I think I should just turn off the Zoom now, because even my head is buzzing. I don't know how Sabrina and Anne-Marie are doing. And Anne-Marie's put, I am so involved. Anne-Marie's got another question. She said, Dean, what are your thoughts on the care system with the high number of Black children that are in the care system presently? Do you have any thoughts around that? Given what you've shared with us, I'm very interested to hear your response to this, actually.
Absolutely. So on my journeys, very early on, another set of people I identified were African diaspora people with care homes. Now, we know that our children have served as candy for freaks from we landed. And I cannot tell you the amount of young ladies I came across when I was a younger man who had been molested in those systems. Put it this way, if I had a drug habit, I would find myself working in a chemist with a free and abundant access to drugs. And this is what pedophiles have done. And they don't have a look, and they come in all shapes and forms. And our children have served as fodder. So number one is a lack of cultural competency. Two, there's a lack of human empathy, which is a natural thing. So I'm not even blaming English people for that. And I'm not blaming English people for their natural prejudices, because if I were to tell you I don't have natural prejudices, that I would rather be around us than go out and deal with anybody else, and I'd only do it for the paper, and I wouldn't do for money what I wouldn't do for free, I'd be lying. So like a lot of the judgments that we have, I don't have that. It's natural. We're different, and it's okay. So I just say it out loud. But there are certain predilections for those who are predators that our children have served as a fodder. Amen. And because they are our children, there has been very little empathy from the authorities within a system, which is why I don't go down the road racism. I don't want to get involved in the racism industry. I just want to talk about structural inequality, which really favors us, which is why we're at the bottom of every measurable metric. So let's just be accurate. There is structural inequality that doesn't favor us, and it is across every single industry. Let's stop focusing on the race industry and start focusing on the African Caribbean specific solutions. So if there are care homes that we have, we bring all the care home owners in a room, we look at the model, we bring our property experts, we bring our finance experts, and then we set up a body. So within 10 days, there will be 2 CICs that land back on my desk. One of them will be ADPAC, and one of them will be the British African Diaspora Office for Statistics, where we are taking a census of us, but we'll continue to take statistics of us across the board for perpetuity, partnering with organizations like Black Pound Day, with all of these institutions that we've spoken about as well that are us, so that we can quantify the circumference of the contribution that African Caribbean people make to the United Kingdom, to the GDP, what we are in education across every field of employment, so that we have clarity about that. It's not for anybody else. Now, that intelligence, since we are being told that data is the new gold, cannot be anything other than virtuous for us specifically and exclusively.
You see, it's so important, and I'm so glad you've articulated it, because actually what you're creating, or what you have created by having that framework, is a starting point. In my living memory, just mine, I've never been aware of a starting point. I mean, I've understood starting points, Dean, for my own family, you know, in terms of intergenerational wealth, blah, blah, blah. But on a grander scale that includes the diaspora, I have never heard of anything like this before, apart from what Garvey tried to initiate before. And I'm glad that you've made references to it. Because actually what this is going to provide is a starting point of our own metrics, so that when others are coming to tell us, we say, no, we've done our research. Actually, this is what we're worth. This is what we're bringing to the table. This is what we're worth. So it provides us with our own baseline. So I really commend you on that, because Dean, for all of this framing, you know, you've just shared nothing else but bare, not even gold. What's the stuff that our phones are made out of that we can't do without? You've just shared, right? So you've just given us whoa out here, right? What do you need? Not what do you need? What does that framework need to go live? And that's what I want to speak about, because yes, it's great that we have it and it's there and it's reflective of all of us. I mean, for us politically, Jesus, this is massive, because actually it's not about that silo mentality of, oh, it's three and whatever million of us here in the UK. Once you're part of a diaspora, we're massive. That's massive amount of influence.
With a global majority.
100% in their speak, this is real traction. I mean, you know what I mean? We walk in the room, there's no room for anybody else. So for somebody like me, this is fantastic. And I'm sure there'll be people listening that'll be like, whoa. So having this more, a broader lens and looking at us as a diaspora. And do you know what I'll say, Dean? One thing I've noticed during lockdown, what the internet, all of the, because we've had nowhere else to go, what these discussions have allowed is a less granular understanding of ourselves, and it has grown. Because actually, I remember in the first, last year, being involved, I was involved in webinars in Malaysia. Who knew there were Black people that lived out there? I mean, I know my friend does, but conversations, and I was like, wow, actually, you don't feel so small and so easily dismissed as well. When you're like, hold on a minute, let me just call from my diaspora. You're not there. You feel more empowered, you feel more secure. So I think this is brilliant. But Dean, tell us, what do you need to happen for this framework to be brought live, so that it can go forward and it can start to be effective? What will it take?
So first of all, I'll speak on history. So we started with the solution room, which was meeting people, putting out the ideas to take the temperature. Great. Captured. We had the public meetings really to get face to face and bring us face to face with each other to understand the caliber of people that we are, and to actually see it, touch it, smell it, taste it. Fantastic. Then the first lockdown, being the workaholic that I am, the thing that kept me sane was setting up the structures. So I brought people together, and I couldn't convey the behemoth that it is to the people. And it got lost. So I know that I upset a lot of those people because I had to drop out and just get it all down. So I didn't want to make the same mistakes of telling you about it, you don't comprehend it. It's all there in black and white. The structure is there total. So what I also did at this stage was put all of the Google Forms so that people can sign up in all of the respective areas. So 2 things. The directors of department who go across economics, education. So now you're thinking about people who are really holding positions like ministers. Education, economics, employment, trade and industry. I wouldn't even go into the projects that are being set up for our trade missions when we start flying again, be you jabbed or unjabbed. Justice reform through the justice industry. And I just, because I touched on that, I'm not losing track of what I need, but I'm just going to touch on this. The 2 points of justice are to create the barristers' chambers, private prosecutions of those who murder us, who the CPS don't see it worth prosecuting. And also, like with the Windrush, which the government is going to be taken out of their hands very quickly. Because Javid, when he was Home Secretary, said, oh, this could be worth around 200 million, sorry. I heard him because I listened. I want to know where the problem is. 200 million, God bless. Let's bring a mass civil litigation where we now take you to court. And if it's going to be worth 200 million and you've admitted liability, and we know you destroyed records, that means we can get an insurance company to underwrite the barristers. So bring all the Windrush organizations together with the respective solicitors, all working with the barristers' chambers, find an insurance company to underwrite the case, and let's go after the government. So they now tell you where to sit, where you go get, who's gonna dead. No, you are the defendant. And unlike Tony Blair, here you go, Pierre. I digress. So each of those departments requires a director who are like ministers, and it's all on the website. So if you go to the blogs department, you'll see directors and trustees. Any of those positions that sound attractive, send an application and all the details are there. Also, volunteers who don't want to commit so much. You may have an expertise, let's say you're a solicitor, and you might want to donate 2 hours a month. Now, if you think you probably spend 60 hours watching TV, if not more, 2 hours of your expertise a month just pales into insignificance. And donations. So directors, donations, and volunteers. Those are the 3. When the CICs come back, which is why I haven't taken any membership money, because I don't have the team working here. So I wouldn't be able to. People get, when can I sign up? When can I sign up? Not yet, because it's a membership organization. Just like the Labour Party, just like you pay your little 10% for the NHS, because insurance is what if shit. And in my limited experience, when it comes to us, it didn't go turn up. So it's £5 a month for people, £15 a month for organizations who will also be plugged into our own electronic communications platform, where we coordinate all of the various projects so that we now have that interconnectivity, no more isolation. And then for the people, our distant cousins, who we call friends of ADPAC, who we will align with, is £35 a month. So this might be a banking institution. It might be the civil service who are showing their solidarity. It might be any of those institutions that exist at £35 a month. But what it actually serves as, going across all of the departments, is a wraparound care nationally for the African Caribbean community in the population in this country. So each of the chapters, Manchester, Birmingham, Leeds, Leicester, Wolverhampton, have regional chairs who, just like your councillors, coordinate everything locally, because they've got that local experience and they know everybody on the ground. And they're funded by an institution, not an individual, not charismatic leadership that can be infiltrated by the intelligence forces. So when we talk about our colleagues in the BPA, the Black Police Association, we want to help you. So now, if you imagine an umbrella, the scope of ADPAC, if we had an app called the National Log, where if you belonged to Equality for Black Nurses, the BPA, National Union of Black Teachers, or whatever institution is African Caribbeans, and you have this app, the National Log, every time you are racially abused in your profession, or you are bullied, you just record that in the app, which will plug straight into the court software and could be downloaded immediately. But what we're doing on the analytics side is we're looking for the cross-cutting themes to fully understand with our own AI how you actually deal with us. Commonly, which you tell us is isolation and a chip on our shoulder. That's very powerful. So we're no longer calling our brothers and sisters in the BPA pigs. We're no longer looking at our nurses who aren't protecting us in the field of the national health because they're intimidated around what feeds their families. And they feel the need to kowtow to employers because we give them the protections. And what our distant cousins have in Stamford Hill, who number nationally 246,000, is superior structure for protection. What we are going to afford ourselves under our own self-determination is superior structures for protection. And we are 3 million nationally. We're not joking. Now, if 100,000 of us is paying £5 a month, that is $500,000 a month for payroll and to save to purchase commercial freeholds. We can be a very serious and competitive proposition in this country, which will only grow out the British GDP.
I don't know. I feel like, I don't even know what to say. Let me just read in the comments, Dean, because it's woo. Now you'll find this interesting, Dean. Adrian says, did Dean say that's why I don't speak to Labour? That's in fact a good start because Labour is not at present fit for the purpose of absorbing the ideas he is talking about, nor having a credible conversation about the policy implications and the progressive politics that it would need to freely flow within the Labour Party in order for that to become a genuine ally in the endeavour he describes. A good start because those of us presently still in Labour and campaigning for an actively anti-racist Labour Party would surely like to see the day that the party is capable of having a constructive dialogue with these ideas that results in a policy that does something on the ground in light of that dialogue, especially when Labour is in government, either locally or nationally. So a next step would be to know where the information is available.
Yep.
Setting out the propositions described by Dean. Links to the information, please, Dean. So if you can, Dean, if you can supply those to me, or if you can
absolutely, I'll send you everything.
Yeah, please. And then so thank you for that, Adrian. Because I want to run as a Labour council next week, but now that you've spoken, I'm probably gonna have a little cry later on, and then I'll make up my mind on Saturday. Because I feel like, no, actually, if ADPAC were raising councillors, that's what I'd want to be, because I'm actually plugging into a greater framework. But that's a whole nother.
Absolutely, but ADPAC isn't a political party, but this is why the political wing of ADPAC supports the building of We Matter Party. And what we do want to do is put candidates forward as late in the day as it is for the London Assembly, which you know represents 2 boroughs. So I would be very happy to have that conversation around the We Matter Party. And there is a 3rd viable candidate for the mayoral position, irrespective of what Khan said today, which I got him on Twitter. So I will just say let's talk about Labour first of all.
Yeah.
So when George Floyd was assassinated last year, I spoke on a Zoom with 7 Labour councillors who wanted to have a consultation with me as to how they could approach Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, obviously, as a Jewish man, is a Jewish advocate. There is a way of sensitively doing it and obviously getting his predecessor out of the way, which was facilitated by his peers. Now, when it comes to the specificity of African Caribbeans, there is no ethnic specific group, and the Black Labour movement isn't an exclusively African Caribbean movement.
No, it
as
is
opposed
not.
to the Sikh. I was at the inauguration of the Black Labour movement, and I was very frustrated. I won't go into the words I conveyed with the chair. First of all, we were at the mayor's office, and there was a 5-litre bottle of water from the co-op, which I actually buy. I know how much it cost, for around 70 people that were in the room. Now, when I have events, I bring around 20 bottles of Prosecco and champagne. I am known for that. I could have sponsored the event myself to make it a more salubrious space for those who were overqualified to be in the space. And then what the gentleman said at the front of the room is, one of my brothers asked him, is this politically Black or is it African Caribbean Black? And the chair of the Black Labour movement said, which is what hurt my heart deeply, because I was very enthused to become intrinsically involved with this organization and bring it in with the machinations of ADPAC. Well, Black is politically Black, is elective. You could be Asian, gay, white. Now, to put it in perspective, there were 2 Asians in this room, one Sikh man wearing a turban, one Indian woman who had her arm in a sling, and there was one English woman. Everybody else in the room were African Caribbean, and he still felt the need to capitulate. Now, that's when I just stepped back from the party position and realized that we need exclusivity and specificity. So I've been on the hunt for those that we could enable politically. Now, I'm also the policy officer for the We Matter Party. It's a back office position, which is about strategy, connecting the dots, connecting personnel and expertise, and then bringing about the correct policy for the party. So when we speak about Labour, I'm going to say this, and then we'll go back to these Jamaican proverbs. There is no such thing as a river without banks. This is party policy, legislation. You are not going to beat the tide. So I speak on this concept, which is a spiritual concept. You jump in the river, you go in where the tide is carrying you. Okay. So the only way to circumvent the direction of the tide is to use a vehicle, an educational vehicle, a political vehicle. Mm-hmm. Now, with us, since we don't have the sophisticated financial instruments to create liquidity so that we can jump straight in, we work with sweat equity, where we amalgamate our intellectual capital and expertise and experience to build that very strong structure. Now, we build it in trust. It costs £2,000 to set up a trust. Over the next year, I would recommend every single institution that we set up from here on in we set up in trust,
Trust.
with trustees and directors under our own self-determination that cannot be interfered with by this lowly legislative law. Now, once we understand that, and we are dealing with politics, education, and everything else, we move under our own autonomy. We're not interested in the optics of a national position, because prime ministers still have to go through all of these other machinations. And if we do get there, it will be based on that narrow river with policy, party policy, legislation. We go for local authority, where our people hold influence, where our numbers are vast, where I believe we are possibly, I won't say lied to, but I believe the greatest lie is omission. So we are not aware of how many of us there are in these boroughs, like Croydon, like Lambeth, like Southwark, like Hackney, like Enfield, Brent. We could go on. Now, also, we need these charismatic leaders within the boroughs so that we get over our voter apathy. And we know there's a reason to vote for people who are going to carry our water, not for a Kemi Badenoch who is going to jump to serve her own personal ambition to commit the policy of benign neglect, and at worst, uphold institutional inequality because it will advance her own political ambition. The same with Tony Sewell, the same with Sean Bailey. Let's call a spade because they're not allowed to call us spades anymore.
Yeah, so we have to call it out. No, I really do like that. Thank you for that. There's a question in the Zoom room. Well, I think it's a statement. It's from Auntie Sonia. So be prepared, Dean, because Auntie Sonia is one of these new woke activists. It's a lot of things. So she writes, "Hi, Dean. I'd be interested in your thoughts on Dr. Claude Anderson and the Powernomics, who has written a number of books that has provided a historical analysis of the problems Black people face and the strategies needed to correct them. He has suggested the following is needed: economics, politics, police and court system, media, and education. Should we apply the same structure in the UK? If so, are we in a position to do so? Thank you." Now, I know you've already covered it, but I think Auntie Sonia, if I remember, she came into the room a bit late. In the resources you're going to send over, does it cover those 5 areas? Like economics?
It covers those areas and more. So first and foremost, I take no credit for the seed of what ADPAC is. Dr. Claude Anderson is 100% responsible for that. Now, I saw a Dr. Claude Anderson lecture in, I think, 2012, and it had me. So this has all been in my cerebellum since 2012. And it was merely coming to a point of evolution where I had the qualification to actually execute. I made a video with Paul. Oh God, I got so much in my brain right now that things can get thrown out. And he's gonna laugh because he knows me and he knows how much I lose words, names, and terms. On Powernomics in 2016. So that video is on YouTube. Literally, me and Paul had drank a bottle of rum and recorded this video on Powernomics, which ADPAC has evolved into the practical execution of Powernomics, going across all of those areas. But Dr. Claude Anderson is 100% responsible for the seeds of that thought on Powernomics, because it is Powernomics. It is exactly that, par excellence, speaking to every single qualified person. Now, it's funny that you bring up Dr. Claude Anderson as well. And it's here that I say I have seen my limitations and where I'll jump out. I don't want to be the esteemed Dr. Claude Anderson's age and as frustrated as him on the singular journey, which is why I realized it needed an institution, not the information. And that is why I had to jump out of the world, It's not for me to tell people what it is, because we don't want to bake the cake. It's not an insult, it's just a fact. You could tell me about your organization, I might not want to bake the cake with you. What I do know is if you build it, people will come. And I listened to Dr. Claude, and he's been saying the same thing for 40 years. He's equally as eloquent. He has the diamond precision and knowledge as if he's been shot in the forehead with a diamond bullet. But we love to clap. And do you know what? You know a Facebook like? Do you know what it actually translates in the real world? Like if you're in a community center or a church. The original Facebook like sounds like this. I'm
dead.
I don't want any more real Facebook likes.
No.
So
we need action.
We needed the institution. So the first thing you asked me that was the most important question, what do you need to make it live? Personnel and donations. Not like Umar Johnson, the team. You can't do this as an individual. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not saying he's a thief. And he has bought 2 buildings that require further substantial investment to turn them into African schools. I am not a fan of his rhetoric at the moment. Yes. And I will never become susceptible to this public debating amongst us because it's irrelevant. Our opinions don't matter. Only our socio-economic position in this world. So you cannot do this stuff as an individual. I tried in the beginning, and I didn't try as an individual. I tried as an unqualified project manager because I ran my whole life as a lone wolf and did things very quickly. So I thought bringing all the expertise in the room and not listening and going and doing their job and duplicating it and pissing people off was what it was. No, it's not. I had to humble myself and submit myself to what I do not know. I was an imbecile. I will tell you that now. I am still a deeply flawed man. I know enough to know what I do not know and what my strengths and weaknesses are and aren't. I defer. And when I'm talking to people wiser than me in a specific area, you will hear me say frequently, Ashe, I defer to your wisdom.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Dean, in preparation for this evening, you would have seen it earlier on Twitter, a situation that I know we were both tagged into. And the sister is here. And I told her to come. She's not just here. Let me not make it up. But she wanted to put it to all of us. So I'm going to let her speak. We'll all come back to, but she's here now. And you and I know from the tweet, this is a tweet of distress. And we're gathered here together. And I know that you have the mighty framework of ADPAC behind you. So Tamar, if you can, my love, in about 2-3 minutes, explain to us what has happened and what you need the village to do to help you.
Hi all. Hi Dean. Hi Donna, for inviting me on. So yeah, many of you guys may know me as one of the activists in the community supporting our people, especially when it comes to domestic abuse and sexual violence. My child has now experienced assault at school. So basically, he told me that he was kicked down by his teacher at his school in his face. He said, "Mom, when I opened up my eyes, I was on the ground, my nose was bleeding and I was crying." He said, calm
down, love. Calm down. Take your time, sis.
PE class, it was martial arts, and the teacher had called him to the front of the class to ask for a demonstration, and then he landed on the ground. He said that the teacher basically told him to get up, you're fine, stop messing about. He showed the teacher his nose is bleeding, and the teacher then got some water, wash it off, and told him to sit in the corner. The teacher didn't report it internally, didn't inform me of anything. I picked up my child, and that's when my child was telling me, I spin back around, you should want to see me. to go to speak to the head teacher. The head teacher was unavailable, and so I asked for her to call me, didn't get no call. So in the evening, I emailed the school to let them know. In the morning, the head teacher called me, completely denied categorically, because of the nature that this is a martial arts expert with 20 years of experience and nothing like that could ever happen. Brought my child to the doctor confirmed my child's injuries and says that his story collaborate with the injuries he sustained. The hospital, I was referred to the hospital for further investigation. The hospital did check him over and said he's not going to sustain any lasting damage, but that I shouldn't report it to the police, I should just go home and wait for the school. The school responded with their investigation, basically now, so first of all, not telling me nothing, to secondly denying it. And now, 2 days after the incident, they coming to me admitting that a major incident did happen. My child was injured, but it was an accident and they're so sorry. That's it. Since then, I have a complaint to the school's Board of Transition, which is part of their complaints process. They tried to invite me to a meeting, but I held back saying I wanted to see the evidence, which I've requested, and it's 3 weeks since the incidents happened. No evidence has been provided. And I don't know what's going on with that investigation. I've reported it to the police. I chased up the police for a response. They told me the case was going to be passed to LADO, and which is the local authority. And that LADO was going to invite me into a meeting with my child in a child-friendly environment to take our statement and make sure this is properly investigated. I didn't hear nothing even when I'm chasing it up. Instead, I was on a different call the other night, and I literally just broke in the call, and I had to speak out to say what was going on. It turns out a police officer was on that call, a Black lady, and she's the one that chased it up internally. Then today I had her sergeant calling me, telling me that he's checked with LADO. LADO have investigated the complaint and they're happy that it's an accident. Mind you, LADO didn't even contact me. I've also raised the complaint with the local MP who's written to the school. The school hasn't responded to the MP. And finally, I've raised the issue with the cabinet minister at the council that's responsible for young people, children and learning services, who came back to me to say she's waiting for direction from the director of education. Basically, it's been over 3 weeks since the incidents happened. The teacher is still at school teaching like nothing's happened. So the children are not being safeguarded from him. There's also word on the street that he's done this to other children in that school as well, and got away with it. And basically, it just feels like nothing isn't happening. Either people are in the same bed together or people are just dragging their legs. Luckily, my child's physical injuries have healed, but psychologically, my child is a mess. And I want a public investigation done, so that it is very clear what's happened and not the school just trying to cover up themselves. Like if I go and take my child to another school, this is likely to follow him. And I don't want that kind of negativity. I want it to be very clear what's happened. I want the teacher to be sacked. I want the head teacher to be held accountable. She went in the classroom on the day and the time the incident occurred. She saw my child in the corner with a nosebleed and didn't do nothing. She told me she thought it was a normal nosebleed. She didn't even report a normal nosebleed to me. And she didn't ask my child how my child was. I suspect she didn't even ask the teacher what had happened, because if she had, that means the teacher lied to her, because she denied it to me the next day. So the head teacher, basically, she failed and she's part of the cover up now. So I want her also to be held accountable. I want proper care for myself and my child, because we're going through hell at the moment. And I want there to be financial compensation as well. So the system, I've gone through the system, I'm going through the system, but the barriers I'm facing, it's not designed, as we all know, it's not designed for people like us to get any justice. So I'm turning to the community to see what can be done for justice to prevail.
Okay, so we will dedicate the next 10 minutes to this, because you know what it's like, Dean. There is no point with, you know, it's sometimes, and this is, we talk, all of us, we're influencers and whatever, we know when we have that panoramic view, but it's often at this more granular level that we sometimes forget what it feels like to live at the sharp end of these blade and knife policies. You know, when the system, so I hear on Facebook, you know, go to the governors, or it doesn't look like you followed the right channels. But you see, when it's your child, as my mother would say, when it's your belly pain, Tamara is a very competent, capable activist in her own right. But when
110%.
When I heard my sister this evening, myself and her biological sister were saying, you can't deal with this on your own. And she said, I don't know what to do. And I said, Dean's on this evening, come and be comforted by the fact that you've brought it to the village, and it is really for us to get involved and see what are the next steps. So interested for your comments, Dean, but right here now, somebody said the governors, I've already suggested that. The same person has said pursue Ofsted. Now, you see, the thing is, and this is why I Donna, am in favor of ADPAC. Having worked in these positions, chair of governors, trustee, blah, blah, blah. It's a bit like when I worked at the Home Office, and I'll share this with you guys. When I worked at the Home Office, there were about 2 solicitors that if they got a letter in during casework from either of those 2 solicitors, shit moved real fast. But the problem was those 2 solicitors were like £1,700 just to start, right? Father, his visa had run out and we were now entering problems. And he said, what solicitor should I pick? I chose one of the 2. Do you know why? We could barely afford it, Dean. But my point is, sometimes when things land on your desk, the impact that that particular letter lands with, the knowledge of what comes behind that letter expedites things very quickly. What Absolutely. Can we do as somebody who's pivotal in Croydon? What can I do to support my sister along with ADPAC so that we get this moving, so they feel the squeeze? Is there anything that we can do?
Absolutely. So the first thing I'm going to say is the same journey I'm saying it as if you're not here. And this is Lioness Tem. As Donna said, this is a very capable advocate in and of her own right. And what it shows us is that we are all susceptible. Remember, I said it's what if shit, and the shit is going to lick us. The first time I heard of a case like this was at my goddaughter's school with her school friend, my friend's neighbor, who, when they had done a school play, she was a big, like you were, a big 10-year-old, maybe looked like 12, 13. She's a big girl. And she wanted to go to the toilet after the little school concert. And the teacher hit her, dragged her by her blouse and hit her with a drumstick. Well, she did this in front of her mum. Now, her mum is someone who could have a scrap, but she chose not to follow the process. So I followed her to the school. To put this in context, this is about 2002, 2003, where I first initially recognized this process up front, which is why I know the value of a Claudine Dewberry taking positive steps or a Cheryl Phoenix Black Child Agenda. They do what they do for this reason. And we're going to come back to this money part. Because they know that, as you well know, so let's start from the beginning with the framework. The local authorities' strategic meetings, which happen between the school, the councillors, the police, the doctors, which is about joined up thinking. They're all colleagues. So if you think about it like the police and a duty solicitor when they come, and you're saying, does this guy represent me? Or are they friends? How they're talking? They have the relationship. They protect each other. Yeah. This is a public liability insurance issue. Now, I homeschool because me and my son's mum made the decision to take my son out of school due to teacher bullying. My son is now confident enough for me to say that he was 7 years old, and I know what you are going through with your son, because my son was 7 and told me he wanted to end his life. He said he wanted to hurt himself. Big old me cried, but I water. Then I got wicked in my chest. And then I got clarity. So when I went to the school, my emotions got me. I'm not a screamer and a shouter. I'm one of those people who whisper when they talk to you. So I whispered to the teacher who was guilty of the offense that made my son feel how he felt. So she felt how I felt. She ran across the playground. She went and got the deputy head. Deputy head came to me and said, you follow me. I said, come here. My name is Mr. Okai, and you will address me correctly. So sorry, Mr. Okai, that's better. Let's go. The head hid from me for 20 minutes. Then I had them both in the office, stammering and stuttering. But we had already made the decision to take him out. That is an individual solution, as I realized, which is not feasible for us as masses. We need to work. We need our children in an institution of education.
Well,
so
that's
this
what
is
happened.
why.
He was in the previous school. They called him, at 6 years old, they called him a gang leader. And they did it in front of me. So I took him out of that, homeschooled him for a year. But as you said, it's not always feasible. So I've chose a different school to put him in, which he only started September, and now we're here.
This is the part I'm coming to. Now, what even we are in this little enclave here are very disparate voices. So if you go to the ADPAC website, adpac.net, go to the blog, there's a page that says, we are as capable of asserting our voices as we decide. That page has a Google Forms for all influencers of any note to sign up to, because part of one of the initiatives that we're going to do is a campaign called We Matter. It's an ongoing campaign, specifically for cases like this. So if you imagine a Swiss from Black Pound Day, and every single influencer of note that you can imagine, where we go in the studio, record a 2-minute and 20-second video that can go on every single platform, saying exactly the same thing about the same case. I'm not talking about 10 of us, 70 of us, 80 of us, and we release it as a thunderclap on the same day. They've never known those levels of organization from us. Can you imagine every single place you look, Twitter, Facebook, every social media, every single mobile phone, saying not your place of employment, but your personal name, because you have transgressed our community. They've never known that level of organizational attack, that level of advocacy. Do you know what makes the ADL for the Jewish League so strong? Organization. They put your personal name in their mouth, and every single delivery partner gets a document called the line to take. The line to take may be a name, it may be a company, it may be a policy that's going to benefit us, but we will have 50, 60, 70 of us saying exactly the same thing in exactly the same way. The problem is, it's not up yet, is it? So what I will definitely do is write a letter from our perspective now as ADPAC, but through every single one of our social media platforms release the individual's name. So when they're telling you about court, don't worry about the case. That's not going to affect your insurance. Because when it comes to us, it's allegedly. This is a legal term for somebody who hasn't yet been found guilty. So you will furnish me and you will furnish all of us with all of the details. The caveat is he is the alleged attacker of your child. Let them know what our infrastructures look like, what our organization, what our alignment and our unity looks like. We will name the time, the date, the school, the alleged attacker, and we will speak about their public liability insurance, and we will talk about the classmate witnesses who haven't been cross-referenced for evidence. You see, as ADPAC is live, when we have our barristers in place, immediately our advocates like Claudine Jubilee, like Cheryl Phoenix, will be empowered by those £5 monthly or whatever donations come in. So we just go and drop 10 grand in a barrister's office to have them on retainer because it's insurance. Because as sure as the sun is going to rise from the east tomorrow and set in the west, it's going to happen to us again. And that protocol that you've experienced is actually the policy for dealing with us. I won't name a gentleman who is a very prominent lion in our community. His son went to school with my sister's children in Brixton. His son broke his arm and sat with a broken arm, snapped, until his parents picked him up at the end of the day. They did not call an ambulance. They did not call any doctor. When I tell you this man is a lion, I would not disrespect him by saying his name. That's his story to tell. They did that to his child. His arm. He's a baby and he sat there from lunchtime break to the end of the school day at 3:30 with a broken arm, with no painkillers, no medication, till his parents picked him up from the sick room. So we no longer pretend that it's an anomaly. It is a policy.
Yeah.
So anything that is a policy, but it's a policy of structural inequality, we're not going to pretend anymore. And this is why we take data, because everything we experience has cross-cutting themes. So we have a group that takes the quantitative and qualitative data from all studies that we do to establish exactly why and what the source of that inequality is. So the Equal group in Birmingham, which is Diaspora owned, has that role in the African Diaspora Office for Statistics. We are now going to get as technical as them, because wherever you are, you must live by the laws of the land. It's like saying, I'm going to do it my way and make it up. If you're making it up, you're just messing up. If they have policy, we must have a policy for every policy. If they have an area of representation and advocacy, we must match them and have that exclusively to benefit African Caribbeans. But what we will do from tomorrow is take all of your evidence line by line, name, date, day, time, and as effectively organized across advocates as we can be, post that to make that man feel the pressure that your son feels now. And then what we'll do tomorrow is call for all of our advocates to speak on your case. So though it won't be as packaged as it will when we're in a studio recording it, and we will release all of those videos day and date. So today is Wednesday. Let's say Monday morning, everybody releases their videos, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, YouTube at the same time. Name, day, date, time. Now you're going to know the power of us, the village, because we love rhetoric. And after our rhetoric, we love optics. But how effective is it? So if we call for an action and you can't come after us because it's alleged, and we have some evidence that goes to supporting that alleged case of assault from an adult on a child. Let's not play games anymore. We don't have to have all of the money. We don't have to have all of the packaging. And the reason that I came away from the world was to have the structure. All we need to do is release all of those videos from all of our effective communicators as a thunderclap on Monday morning at 10 a.m. since we love social media so much, right?
Yeah.
So what you're gonna do, and you know me and you have my number, is send me the document with all the information. And that document then becomes, by tomorrow morning, because I don't sleep, a call to action to shoot a video, to share the posts across every social media that we have. That is how our effective organization starts. So you provide the proof of concept for that campaign that I call the We Matter campaign.
Yeah.
Because if we matter, you matter.
Yeah.
That's not rhetoric or optics. That is the practical implementation of that man feeling like he has a painful stomach disease when he hears his name in all of our mouths as the alleged attacker of a child. So when your son actually watches all of these videos, number one, he's going to feel vindicated to know that he is loved, to know that he is protected, to know that he matters, because his mother is a somebody. But you know what, Tema? You might not have been a somebody. You might have been one of the ones we overlooked.
Yeah.
There's a saying they have in the States: she was the wrong N-word to F with.
Yes.
And today is that day.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, and now landing it back on the ground, let's just imagine if you weren't the person you are, who has put in the work and advocacy that you have for women in domestic violence. I didn't know you, Donna didn't know you, because we are so numbed to our personal pain, because it's not our personal pain, it's just in our community. That we just shrug. Yeah, but it's the policies, it's the standard MO. No, you're going to stand as the proof of concept. So I'm going to WhatsApp you my email. You're going to send me all that information tonight. By tomorrow morning, it'll be a call to action. All of those good men and women in our community will record videos. Now we know what the proof of concept looks like, the structure. We release them as a thunderclap. And we're not going to do it individually looking for hype. We're going to do it together in alignment on the hour, on the day, date, time. So the pressure is felt. And let me ask you a question. Do you feel that that alignment of maybe 50, 60, 70 men and women of repute from our community is going to affect that man's employable status or not?
Yes.
Do you fear a campaign that lets people know we matter is going to be picked up by the press because we decided we matter?
Yes.
So we come back full circle, and I said something to you. We fail to make a high concept decision very quickly that we have parity with everybody else, that my gun and your gun are only different based on your narrative. Now, take away your narrative more.
That's right.
You're coming to compete with parity. I don't want equal opportunities inside your domain, because as they say, I would rather reign in hell than serve in heaven.
Yeah.
If this lily white pool is your heaven, let me be in mine with mine and ours. If we matter, it's because you matter as an individual. Because as the sun is going to rise in the east and set in the west, one of us is going to be here the day after.
Yeah.
But we will then have a proof of concept for our MO. And then hand that right off to our advocates, Claudine and Cheryl. Every expertise must play their role to the letter. We don't need to make anything up where we're inexperienced. They have the innate understanding of the institution. They have all of the legal backup that they require. All we require is to put steroids on the back of that case. As we effectively organize, we will cease to be a game, because the only thing that's going to make us a protected people is our self-determination, not legislation, because we're British citizens. So we have the same right as everybody else on paper.
Aye.
But you can say nigger on the BBC with no ramifications. You can't say kike. You can't say packy, and I only use these terms for parity purposes.
Yes.
Nigger is free, packy is not, kike is not, yid is not, mick is not, wop is not, and nigger, darky, coon will cease to be freely used in their mouths only the minute that we choose to serve ourselves and make ourselves a protected group by our superior organizational skills.
I don't know about anybody else. Tamar, do you feel loved? I think she's frozen. I think she has frozen, bless her. Dean, I'm going to thank you for that, even if she's frozen, because I know.
I know the lady.
I know.
I know the pain she must be in to come and say that here, because she's an advocate. She's not calling on nobody like I'm not calling on you.
That's right. It's a lot. And when I was there at the meeting when she raised it, and since, you know, I think maybe her internet has gone. But I do thank you for that, brother. And when she comes back, I'll tell her the message of support in the chat and also in the chat on Facebook. So many people are like, this is traction. This has been long overdue. This is what we've been waiting for. So I thank you for that. And definitely, you know, you can't convey to everyone, Dean, and that's a whole nother Oprah show, you know?
I'm not a converter of man or woman.
No, but there's something that you said that is, there's something you said earlier on, you used the word earlier on, that is not used often, but that is so intrinsic to this discussion and also to the progression of us as a people. And it is the word humility.
Mm-hmm.
So many people mistake passion and humility, you know, and humility. You have to be prepared in order for there to be, this is not so much collaboration. Actually, what is being offered is a no compromise framework that you either adhere yourself to or you don't. But know this, when the lorry move, when the brandy truck move, who's on it is on it and who ain't. Do you understand? But I like the fact that you said the word humility, because actually what nobody knows, and this is something that I talk about a lot in practice, is that in order for there to be traction, there has to be sacrifice, and you have to be humble, and you have to remain humble. So when you spoke about you being a deeply flawed man, I hear that because I'm a deeply flawed woman. And often it's on this platform that I will convey those things. But you see, unless we're going to be honest and talk about our flaws, but remain humble, we as a people, as a collective, we will never move forward. And this is what, in order for me to take on your viewpoint, I might have to remove some of what I consider so that we can go forward and I can take on your thing. This is how it has to be. And this is why our distant cousins in Stamford Hill, they're human just like us, Dean. They don't get along. They don't all see things in the same way. But what they have is an understanding of the greater outcome for the collective. And that's something they have because they know that in order for you to get there, there has to be a certain amount of humility. So I really appreciate the fact that you said, I've written down in big letters, humility, because that's something that I've been talking about recently on this platform. In order for there to be progress, It has to be an understanding around humility, and people have to be ready to sacrifice, transfer that power of self into a power and energy of us. And that's, you know, if I could think of a role that I would have within that, it would be to have these very real conversations where we act as a conduit and we make these understandings to the people. Listen, this is what it's going to take. It's brilliant and we all want to sign up for it, but actually there's a level of self-sacrifice to it. So I really do want to thank you for that. Somebody with the name Hello C Galaxy has got their hand raised. Did you want to unmute yourself and speak? Thank you.
Oh, greetings. Thank you, Donna. It's actually Eloise, silent H.
Eloise.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. So I am a fellow lioness from Tamar's group, and I have come to extend my support to the work that she does and to this devastating situation that she's brought to the community. I would like to thank all the support that she's received, because obviously she's cut out now, so I felt compelled to speak as a lioness. My son has also experienced systemic racism within the education system. He's currently being navigated by 4 mentors to assist me and his father to empower him, and just like Tamar's son, unfortunately it's the establishment against the word of the child. So it's essential that not only we exhaust legal procedures, but we do rally up the support of the community as is being done here. So thank you very, very, very much on behalf of all the lionesses for this amazing support that that we clearly need, not just as lionesses, but as parents. It can be quite daunting because, you know, a lot of the educational jargon's gone over me and my son's father's head, and without the support of educational and educational experts, mentors, legal professionals, we would be very overwhelmed having to try and empower our son, who is outstanding. He's an air cadet. My son's doing very well. He's 14, but he's going through the same oppression. It's the same thing. So thank you. Sorry, I don't want to overtake, but I just wanted to say thank you and express my gratitude.
Thank you for your contribution to the conversation, Eloise, 100%. Do you want to say something, Dean, in response to what Eloise shared?
Absolutely. First, thank you. And secondly, you actually alerted me to something, so it's an opportunity. So any advocates or teachers, African Caribbean teachers, advocates around the educational system, but not just educational, youth safeguarding, youth engagement, go to the ADPAC website, and as you scroll down to the bottom of the page, adpac.net, you'll see the framework for the schools to industry pipeline. So this is a framework which operates in the public health approach, where we want you all to come on as delivery partners so that we can create that wraparound care for our young people. So be it the child-parent intervention, mentoring, whatever it is, safeguarding, teachers, social workers, download that framework. Everybody's in there. The public health approach is an intra-agency approach. And when we say intra-agency, everybody imagines that we'll be talking about their institutions. No, this is all about self-determination. It's about all of our experts together, falling in line with our framework so that we create a seamless pipeline that goes from nursery through school, through rites of passage to college, university, and then industry, so that we stop talking about schools to prison pipeline. If that's something of their manufacture, words are spelled because they shift consciousness. We say, look, this is a thing when as we get into metaphysics, all magic is the ability to shift your consciousness. If I came on here and said the wrong words, I would have definitely shifted your consciousness in the wrong direction, and we may have been more deflated. if I come on here and speak clearly, because I've been living and breathing these frameworks that have been put together over the course of 12 months, it's going to shift consciousness and deliver a clarity like each of us has been shot through the head with a diamond bullet. So in that framework, if we adopt it, we say goodbye based on our very intentional desire to create wraparound care for not only the children, but the families. Total wraparound care, and Kay Johnston gave me that. Again, I'm not the architect, I'm a borrower, is the total wraparound care of the African Caribbean family, with every single agency that we have aligning, collaborating as consortiums so that that child is fully protected. There is no mention of a Pru and an African Caribbean child in the same sentence, when they can be in a supplementary space where they are loved, where there is empathy, because they are our children. You cannot lick down an African child in front of me. I'm going to get them.
Sorry, was my strong? No, I was just, I was looking at what was saying.
That wasn't a Facebook like. That was Facebook.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't it. That was a genuine.
No, I'm playing.
RL, you have your hand up. Is there something you want to contribute to the discussion?
Yeah, bro. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Evening to everyone. Dean, as usual, man, your talk is always on point. It's Rowan here, by the way.
Bless King. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I was just kind of really just listening, but when I heard what our sister had to say there, I put in a comment in the chat box there. So have a look at that.
I will do.
And yeah, we've been in a similar situation. What I would say, and just to be very quick on it, is first of all, they've shot themselves in the foot.
Yes.
Right? And they know it. So sometimes when you're dealing with racism, what is presented straight in front of you, this is just my experience, is actually the lowest denominator, which is serious. It's definitely the most serious, which is the incident itself. But the other thing is that they never showed you anything about the injury itself. They never told you about it. They never followed it up. They didn't do the normal processes that you would do if someone has an accident, if they want to call it that, or if someone's been assaulted, or if someone's been assaulted, which is what we know it is. All right. So that's the first thing. Even take racism out of it. So that's your card, and she must use it. And that's why they're not communicating back to her or trying to give it any kind of energy. All right. But that's her trump card. And then the very fact that they haven't done it or followed up to date, that's where the racism comes in. You see?
Yes.
So there's a, what would you say? Inappropriate response. And then when that inappropriate response goes to unreasonable timescales, then you realize there's something else, you see? So follow up on that contact I've given there in the chat room, because we had a situation where similar happened around a racial incident with a young 6-year-old, probably 5-year-old at the time. And when they didn't follow up, when we contacted them, etc., and they looked like they didn't really want to do nothing about it or want to string us along, you realize you need to have some professionals involved. And once you've got the professionals involved, you will hear a different type of talk, because they know they're not stringing you along. That's what they're trying to do, is string it along to the point that something else comes up, like, I don't know, a money issue or a health issue later on, or something, and then you just, you just haven't got time for it anymore. So get that professional support in place. And one thing I will also say as well is go and talk as well. I know sometimes when these things happen, you don't want to, talk to everybody. It's embarrassing. It's also, it's a chink in your armor, because if it was face to face on the road, you would knock the person out clean. There would be no argument. There would be no deficit. Yeah. But this is a different ball games. But go and talk to the other parents, because when we started talking to other parents, what we found is it was happening to them as well. Okay. So when you start correlating now that it's not just your one son, this has happened before, and they are aware of it, the parents are aware of it, it starts what you're talking about, Dean. There is a rolling kind of snowball effect. You understand? So that's my advice to the young lady there, man. And it touched me to see. I could look at her face, I could see the pain, and I could recognize that straight away. Yeah, but she's got all the ammo there, but they are gonna try and make it look like, you ain't got nothing here. The guy just did something. Yeah, if he just did something simple and it wasn't meant to be that, then why doesn't he sit down with the parent and talk and explain that? Why doesn't he apologize to the boy? Simple things, isn't it? If it was such a simple thing, but it's not. They realize it's bigger than that. That's why they're trying to cover it up.
100%. Well, thank you for that, brother. And what I've done is I've copied and pasted and sent it to her on Messenger. Your message from the chat, I've exported that to her privately so she can take her time. And please, Eloise, if you speak to her afterwards, tell her Donna put it on her Messenger. I sent it to her as a message, so she's got all that information. Dean, we are coming. Indeed, we are at the end of our.
I've got to say something very important about our family who just contributed. And I say again, exposure leads to expansion. Family, you intentionally wrote the script for the call to action. You first, anytime I start a business, I start with what I have around me in my hand. You know, the first people you call to action for that video are the parents who have similar experiences and empathy with what you are going through. In the same school, calling out the same head teacher and the same names of the alleged case. Exposure leads to expansion, and this is why we come together to break bread and to share our intellectual capital and experience, because you cannot hoodwink a collective, only individual victims. But we're not victims because after today, we recognize we all have parity. And my gun and your gun are the same. You just have a different narrative from me. But now I'm going to bring my video cameras and my media to match you with your video cameras and your media, so that when you fire your gun as the BBC, we bring Al Jazeera and RT. We have our own delivery partners. And speaking on that, I will say something else to the family. Your enemy's enemy is your man. And everybody wants to embarrass England at the moment. So you are hot property. That could be Vice, that could be Al Jazeera, that could be RT, it could be our plethora of community channels, be that Soapbox, be that Black Ice TV, be that Content Over Everything, be that HMP TV. We are here. I do want to make this call to action. If every single one of our influencers with a podcast can go on adpac.net, go to the blog and sign up on the page that says we are as capable of asserting our voices as we decide, and fill in the Google form. What that will do is create a huge database of influencers. What we will do every week is release the line to take. So, you know, the minute that the virus released, English people just started saying, well, this is the new norm. Well, imagine if African Caribbean people just start saying, it's a basic human right across every single one of our influential voices. Or we start to put people's names in our mouths over every single one of our influential voices or their company, because we can't get mad on social media and give somebody 20 million of free advertising without outrage when we can package it and put it in context and dump it in. So now we come to become the giant killers through effective organization.
Giant killers and all of these things. I don't even know. My glasses are hurting me. Dean, will you come back and speak with us on H&H?
Absolutely, your family.
It truly has been an honor to, you know, I felt like your Socrates tonight, and I have just sat listening to all of these things that are spilling from your mouth, your gems that you've just such wisdom, such I wish I'd had you to help me write my CV and my covering letter earlier on today, mate. I would definitely know I'd get the job. Thank you so much for taking the time to spend. I think everybody, you know, the comments. I don't know if you've seen the chat.
I haven't seen anything.
Yeah,
I'm going to read it tonight though.
Yeah,
and I'm going to, incidentally, anybody in the chat that wants to reach out, I will follow it up, and I will send you the links for the forms as well to become involved.
Please, and send them to me anyway, because what I tend to do is, when we've had a really impacting speaker, I then will put those resources on my page, because most people that are listening on Facebook, the only reason you can get to my page is if you become a friend of mine in the first place. So if it's there, then they can access it. And that also go for those of you who are in the Zoom room. You heard what Dean said. If you follow him on Facebook and you contact him differently, then he'll be able to share, you know, because I noticed, Tony Ems, you've asked a question about your skill set, and can you volunteer that for ADPAC?
Everything is on the website. Because do you know what it was? I had to automate everything because it's too much for a man. Now, if we're creating a system that is going to be governed by the masses and generations to come, it has to be on a very solid foundation of organization. Trust me, I have tried it every other way and messed it up and pissed people off. This is set on solid foundations where it's functional. The only reason I've come to this place of clarity, I'm not special. I have made every single plausible mistake as a layperson. I just now have 4 years of experience. Brilliant. Even the worst man in McDonald's will become a god serving fries after 4 years.
No, Auntie Anita has the last word in all things. And Auntie Anita says, yes, come back. This has been fantastic. There's so many people who have really enjoyed tonight's session. We would love to have you back to talk more, I think, about We Matter. And the reason I'll say that is we've used this platform to have other political awareness groups. And yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So it'd be interesting to use this platform to have you come back and talk more about that. Because there are people here, what I can say is, H&H supporters are people that want to do. They want to
Absolutely.
do. People like Donna, what can I do? Most of us are professionals. We've got massive skill sets, but we don't know where to go.
Yeah.
Having you come here to ask this will give people food for thought to go away and think about, what can I really contribute? What can I actively contribute to furthering this opportunity for my people? So I know people that can hear my voice right now and be like, yeah, do you know what? That's what I'm going to go away and do. So it'd be good to have you come back to just talk some more, and also for people this time to come back and say, Dean, I feel this is what I can offer, or ask questions about how they feel they can fit. I think that would be really, really productive. People, so, I'm not doing.
I'll just hit the websites one more time. I've got to steal your floor. I'm going to land my plane. So ADPAC.net and WeMatterParty.org.
Did you get that, people? The WeMatterParty.org and ADPAC.net. Remember those, and I'm sure they'll be included on the resources that will be on my page. Dean, I'm not rushing anybody, you know, because normally one time we was here until 20 to 3. Don't get this place twisted. When they're ready for chat, see. But I have promised my 12-year-old that we will binge.
God bless.
Mummy's been at the desk all day.
Yeah, I know the feeling. I'm about to go and have a drink myself and break through.
I bought the popcorn, so tonight I am his. My brother, I cannot thank you enough again for coming on here. Thank you to all of the supporters. Thank you to Tamar, who can't hear my voice, but for trusting the village with what is a very sensitive and a very big wound that she's dealing with right now. For being brave and coming and sharing with us as a village. Absolutely respect that. And thank you to our Facebook supporters who have listened and joined in and loved tonight's discussion. We are back on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, we've got a great lineup of guest panel speakers talking about men and their mental well-being during lockdown. So again, it's hearing another voice, because us women, we do go on a bit. If you feel like joining us, any of our brothers, please do. It's the same login details. Nothing ever changes here. because I'm lazy. But please feel free to come and join the conversation on Tuesday. Dean, can't thank you enough, my brother.
No,
But
thank you. And everyone listening, thank you.
Thank you so much. Definitely. Right. Let me stop streaming to Facebook.